Giving Pittsburgh a better alternative. Giving Pittsburgh a better alternative. Yeah. Extra, reading the issue. Raw news, unapologetic, no tissue. Catch the wave, the flow first certain. Nothing pull you in like a Pittsburgh current. Free from influence, nothing less than. No flexing, aim for.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Pittsburgh Current podcast. I am your host, Pittsburgh Current editor and publisher, Charlie Deach. The new issue of the Pittsburgh Current is out. And on the cover of that issue, the digital issue is out. On the cover of that issue is our guest today, Dave Bracey, a stand-up comedian, co-founder of the Pittsburgh Drinking Partners podcast, and co-founder of Fresh Fest, the nation's first black beer festival. This year, though, because coronavirus is an asshole, Fresh Fest will have a different look, taking its show online. Hey, Dave, welcome to the show.
Oh, hold on. Thank you for having me, man.
Good to see you. So how have you been living through the quarantine? How's that been for you?
It's been everything. It was scary. It's been exhilarating. It's been saddening. It's been, a lot of wins, a lot of fails. Yeah, I mean, it's everything you can experience in a dumpster fire. It's 2020, man.
So has everybody stayed healthy in your household? Is everybody?
Yeah, we're all safe and healthy. So I mean, at least we have that going. I mean, that's the most important thing out here. You know what I mean? Like everybody, like it's weird because like I grew up in poverty and the majority of my life I'm still in poverty. Like I said, I grew up in poverty. So whenever you live a life of like instability and kind of like not really knowing when the next check comes, like whenever the rest of the world starts to go into chaos, it kind of feels like home. So, it's for me. I mean, to be honest, like it's been wild, but like I mean, I can't remember a year that hasn't been. And I remember, in 2015, we were like, oh my God, I can't believe 2015 happened. Like, I can't wait till 2016, man. And every year has gotten progressively worse since then.
Yeah.
So, if I'm learning anything, it's to cherish 2020 because 2021 is probably going to be, even worse. So
apocalyptic type shit, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, enjoy it while we're in it.
So obviously, it's the pandemic, the coronavirus has kind of screwed up a lot of things for a lot of people this year. But Fresh Fest obviously was something that had been in the works since the second Fresh Fest. So at what point did you realize you were going to have to find a different way to move through?
So, I mean, I want to say it was the CDC or the WHO, but really it was after our last in-person meeting in March when we found out that Tom Hanks had the run and the NBA had canceled. At that point, we were like, we should probably not see each other again for a while. So that was our last in-person meeting. And we kind of struggled for a couple of months because we were in this like limbo of, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Like all this science was coming out, but we're trying to like stay up to date with it. Like, is it a contact disease? Is it an airborne thing? Will the summertime air kill it? Can we put up plastic? Like, at the event, like, it was all kind of shit. And, it was around like late April when we decided like, we weren't going to be able to do this. And we were, we had typed up a, postponement letter and let all of our folks know that it wasn't going to happen. And then, I don't know, just watching a lot of DJs on IG and, getting a lot of feedback from the community saying like, they needed something, this year positive to look forward to or whatever. It was around, mid-May is when we decided to go digital.
And Is that so? So when you decide that, I mean, obviously, the first thing you have that you realize is, you know, people aren't going to be able to. Well, people can drink, but not of the at the festival and so forth. Was it so? What kind of mindset did you go into? Did you go into, I guess, like a more of a programmatic mindset, entertainment mindset?
So I mean, first and foremost, it was like, all right, we have a brand, drinking partners, Fresh Fest. There's a brand, a certain level of quality that we're known for, or whatever. So we didn't want to go in and just do a bunch of Skype calls all day.
Right.
We didn't want to do a handheld phone fest.
Right. Right.
We didn't want to have a bunch of people scattered across the country having difficulties trying to figure out how to work their audio, plugging into the thing. So the first part was can we offer the elements of Fresh Fest digitally at a high quality, because Fresh Fest is so much more than just the beer. First and foremost, Fresh Fest is the celebration of Black culture and the uplifting of Black culture through the beer industry. So we wanted to make sure that we could get some folks in like a Garrett Oliver or Nicole Beckham, and maybe even get some artists performing and whatnot, and put that out at a high quality. So we hit up Work Hard, and luckily they're a sponsor of the festival, and we said, hey, are we able to do this? I mean, like affordably, because basically we're TV producers at this point. So
Right.
it was like, can we affordably do this? And they came back with some numbers and was like, yeah. So that was the first part, was making sure that we could get the quality behind it, the tech behind it. Second was the beer. And we reached out to breweries to see if they were still able to brew beer in a short period of time. We didn't really want to change the date for the festival. I mean, who knows what's going to happen the week after that or the week after.
Right.
It's 2020. like I mean, so we wanted to, but it was a short period of time. I mean, 6 weeks, 8 weeks to brew a beer isn't a long time when
Right.
we talk about collaborating across the country and whatnot. And I know that the breweries were hit really hard with the pandemic, and like they had just got done doing the all together beer to support the social service industry. They just got done brewing the Black is Beautiful beer, so like they had done a couple of collaborations plus this pandemic. We didn't know. But luckily, we had their support. We reached out to the local breweries. We reached out to the national breweries, the Black-owned breweries, and they were down. And once we had those two elements, we were able to kind of start working. We also, shout out to Farm to Table, shout out to PH Experiment, because they gave us financial backing from the gate. When most of our other sponsors were like, we'll see you next year.
Yeah.
They were like, we don't care what you're doing. If you're doing something here, we trust that it's going to be worthwhile and go for it. So those three elements were the first to kind of like, all right, we have something to work with. And then we introduced it to the community.
And it's the end result is going to be Fresh Fest Digi Fest, and you can go to freshfestdigifest.com to get your tickets. And you guys, you're keeping it affordable, $10 for the entire production. And there's an app, right? You guys had your own app developed, also, right?
Yeah. So Work Hard. We were going to have an app developed for the festival this year in person. It's going to have maps and shuttle trackers and all these like crazy things on it. So when we talked about the DigiFest, we just repurposed a lot of what it was capable of doing for a digital format. So
right.
Work Hard, shout out to Work Hard again at Academy Pittsburgh for developing that app, because it's not cheap. It's very helpful to make sense of this festival. And the $10 was, like you said, it was a way to make it affordable. It's digital content. It's new. So people will take a chance with $10. You know what I mean?
Right.
And we also, again, we wanted to make it a price that most people could kind of get into, and we could kind of cover our costs. Like I said, I mean, it's sponsorships. I mean, this festival isn't making any money, like
right.
at all. We have. But again, we have sponsorships to cover the cost to make sure that everybody's paid. So, we are able to offer that low ticket price, and hopefully in the future we can continue to do that. As we, move back into in-person events, we'll be able to still offer a digital component at a cheaper cost, because not everybody can afford to make it to Pittsburgh to experience Fresh Fest or wherever we take it, in the future. But we still want to offer that education, that inside look into the industry for folks that typically aren't able to do that.
Give me a little overview of the programming. What can people expect? And is this all going to be contained in the app? Is that so? I download the app and my entire festival's in the app, or?
No. So the app is a guide. The app will
Okay.
have, it'll have a Black-owned brewery directory, schedule of events. It'll have all of our collabs in there, when they're going to be released, how you can get those tickets. It'll also have information, say on the New Sun Rising Small Business Workshop that we're putting on this Saturday, and a list of artists and speakers that are going to be a part of the festival. And this festival, so the $10 gets you access to six YouTube streams. So, that, when you buy the ticket, you'll get a link in your email, and that link will take you to, this browser that has all of these links on it. So you can watch it from any device that has, a browser or any kind of, link to any kind of YouTube, your smart TVs or whatever. So throughout the day, we have from 12 to 3, we're going to have mostly, symposiums, speakers, kind of giving that insight and talking about things, brew related and, Black related. Again, the purpose of the festival is not just to create more Black drinkers, it's to create more opportunity within an industry that we have less than 1% representation in.
Right.
And in order to do that, we need to talk to the folks that are in the industry and learn from them. So we have, like I said, we have a J. Nicole Beckham who is, starting Craft by EDU, and is also, the diversity ambassador for the Brewers Association. We have Garrett Oliver, who is a legend in the beer industry and happens to be a Black guy. We have Paul Jones and Stacey Aya over in England, out of Cloudwater and Rock Leopard Brewing, because we want to know, what's the beer industry like, across the pond, and how they're facing, racial issues, in Europe. So that 12 to 3 is a lot of symposiums, a lot of information, a lot of education. From 3 to 9 is when we get into more of the entertainment side. So we have 4 stages out in Allentown. We have it staffed with 3 to 5 people, and then we have no more than 10 people in any act performing at a time, 6 feet apart. Everybody, masked up as much as we can, so that there's no more than 15 people on site at any venue, well below the 25 that's allowed, and we're able to stream those live from Allentown from 3 to 9. We have DJs paired up with artists who are going to be DJs mixing and doing the whole thing, while live artists are going to be painting visually, art. So you get to watch a work of art happen while you're jamming to some tunes. And then we also have a couple of stages for bands and rappers and live acts there as well. We also have a live brewing day going on in Abjuration with Gabby, the anti-socialite. She's going to be hosting and making a collaboration beer because Gabby doesn't like beer. And one of the things about the festival is we go to Black women and we go, well, okay, people haven't asked, you don't like beer because people haven't asked you what you like to drink and built a beer for you. So that's what we like to do here with the Fresh Fest, and that's what's going to be happening. You'll get to see that live. We had her down at Abjuration a week or so ago, and she got to try a couple of the different beers, and there was a white chocolate raspberry beer. There was a grape Welch's juice beer. There was she was like, oh, I didn't know beer could taste like that, and that's the beauty of it. So there'll be live brewing, as well as some pre-recorded content and some panel discussions there. And then we have a cooking channel where we will have 4 different segments plus live segments plus some pre-recorded content with chefs cooking with beer. We have Jackie Page working with Apis Mead on a strip and grits mead pairing. We have Burgers Brewing coming down with CB Perry to do some burgers. We have mixologists with Cecil Usher and we have Jewel the Baker that's going to be making, liquor cakes. A bunch of, taking icing and, from breweries and making them into icing and putting them into cakes and all that. So there's a lot of entertainment, 54 hours of it, to be exact. And it's a mix of all of those things that you expect to see at Fresh Fest. Only it's digital, it's to your door, and without the corona.
Yeah, the beer or the virus, right?
Yeah.
So, talk a little bit about, Dave, since you guys started this. This is like I said, this is the third. How have you seen locally? Have you seen much of a change in terms of the industry and sort of the product sort of opening up toward the Black consumer and or even the Black business owner? Have you seen any changes locally, even small changes?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like it was slow, but like Zach hit me up and was, Zach Shoemaker up at Shoe Brew. He was like, man, we get like, 2 or 3 Black folks coming in here a day. He was like, 3-4 years ago, it was 2 or 3 Black people a year
Right.
that would come in, and, he was like, I attribute that to a lot of the work that's being done by, with Fresh Fest and whatnot, like when and we try to teach, like the industry in general and say, hey, if you make efforts to let people know that they're welcome in your establishment, and people will come to your establishment, but it has to be something that you work on. It has to be active. It has to be intentional. So, a lot of the brewers are, very aware that there is an issue, and they are taking steps, towards, trying to solve that in the ways that they can. I'm in constant communication with folks. They're always asking, hey, is this something that, we should move forward with? Do you think this might be a little insensitive? Do you think, and that's the important thing. Anytime you're trying to create change is to talk to people. We try to build a festival for Black women, so we go and talk to Black women.
Right.
And we hear, we listen to what they're, what they say, what they want, how they see the world, and we move accordingly. Mackenzie Harris started brewing, a couple of years ago, partially due to Fresh Fest. Now he has a job up in Buffalo, working at a brewery up there, and he's going to be working on a collab with Hop Farm, for the festival this year. And that's huge because I didn't know many Black people that brewed here in Pittsburgh. And now I know Black guy brewing, here in Pittsburgh after a couple of years of the festival. We have a lot of people that are looking, a lot of people reaching out saying, hey, I do this, I'm an artist, or I'm an accountant, or I'm a teacher. Right. Like, how can I transition into the beer industry? What are some opportunities, therein? A lot of artists, trying to figure out ways that they can partner with the beer industry. So I mean, there's been a lot of awareness. There's a lot of talk, there's understanding here locally that there's an issue, and it's even extended beyond the festival. Talking about Black issues, it's not a vacuum here in the beer industry. There's not many industries that are dominated by wealthy Black people.
Right.
So when you start to raise awareness in one place, it's hard to not start talking about the general, the atmosphere, and we don't shy away from the issues here in Pittsburgh, outside of the beer industry. So I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of different organizations and entities, that are looking to do better here in this region. And I try to offer as much as I can. I'm not able to offer much, but I am able to offer a lot of connections and a lot of people who are much smarter than I am, in these areas. So I mean, I've definitely seen some change. It's slow growth, but it is some growth.
So this year, obviously, there's a different tenor to things. Everything we're doing in life right now, with the protests surrounding that kind of was ignited with the death of George Floyd, and the Black Lives Matters protests that have gone on. How has that? What kind of either feel or how has it sort of affected what you're doing this year? Is it affecting it any different? I mean, because your goal is always, again, to promote Black culture and to just Black lives in general. So how does it?
So I mean, it's different in the sense that people, like, there's more awareness outside of, you know what I mean? Like, people that typically wouldn't have reached out are reaching out. People who were on the fence are now kind of like saying, you know what? Yeah, this is really something. So, you know, like, our ability to, I don't know, reach certain people has expanded a little bit. You know what I mean, in that, but I mean, for us, like, it's like nothing really has changed. The mission
Right.
is still the same. We've been doing but like, nothing has really changed for Black people since
Right.
George Floyd, right? You know what I mean? Like, you know, we've been living in George Floyd's America our entire lives. You know, we've seen it. The only thing that's different for us is that, you know, there's more cameras around to capture that, that allows us to tell our story, you know, a bit more unbiasedly. You know, you get to see that film, and it's like it was 9 minutes. You know, so like that was one of the few instances. You know, and then Elijah McClain right afterwards. You know, like reading his last words, like, you know, I cried, like, you know, reading that. I don't cry often, you know what I mean? Like, and you know, I talked to a lot of people that were like, you know, it was a breaking point. And, you know, when you're in social services, when you're trying to enact change, you know, these moments will come up. You know, and when these moments come up, it's our job to try to like capture that and get as much from that as and make as many changes as we can with that kind of like that increased attention, right? Because the issues aren't new; it's just the attention that's new. It's the you know, people reaching out and saying, "Hey, how can I do this?" Because I know that 6 months from now, people aren't going to be talking about George Floyd anymore.
Right.
I mean, people, like, the news cycle is going to change. Like, it's going to be a different dumpster fire. Like, it's going to be something else. So, you know, it's our job to kind of like capture as much as we can, knowing that it's going to probably cool off at some point. But that's cool because we're going to continue to put in the work, you know, so that the next time somebody, you know, that dies needlessly, or the next time the, you know, national attention turns towards Black lives, we are still here, and the work is still here, so that, you know, we can again push and move forward. You know, same thing with the pandemic, right? Like, it's one of those things where if we don't take this opportunity to make some real change, if we go back to normal, then we fail. And, you know, it's not that you know, the folks at the bottom have are new to poverty. It's just that, you know, there's some folks that are able to make some change, that are newly aware to the ills of poverty and the shitty system that we live in. So that's our opportunity to kind of tag those people and say, hey, do something about it. I mean, don't just sit there on your hands.
Right. And this is something I've thought about a lot, and at times it's sort of, I mean, at some point you're just kind of like, well, I'm glad people are taking notice now. But one thing that I've thought about, and one thing that's really like pissed me off when I go back and think about it, you know, is what was it about, this moment that people now like, oh my God, look what's going on. But you know, Eric Garner, Freddie Gray, Tamir Rice, where were Leon Ford, or I'm sorry, Leon Ford. You know, well, even the shooting of Leon Ford. What was it about that, or what was it about this that people are just now sort of opening? I don't know, opening their. I don't know what it is. Is it because of the scope of it, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it was, you know, I think that it was a perfect storm of shit, right? So you had this pandemic that came down, and the reason why racism is so prevalent in our politics and in our America is because the you know, the GOP and the people in power are really, really good at telling white people that we're the enemy, and that if they vote away all their rights and protections or whatever, then they'll be safe. So Reagan came in the 80s and was like, yo, like, fuck social services, like, these welfare moms, right? You know, like, welfare isn't a thing that we need. Deregulate industry, because if you work hard, then, you know, you'll get rich. So deregulate the industry, don't worry about wages because you're going to work hard and you're going to get it, and these corporations are going to give it to you. So like you have decades of and then you had 3 years, you had 3 presidencies, you had 3 terms of Reagan. Like Bush was the 3rd Reagan term, right? So that changed. The Democrats started having to play catch up in the 90s, and that's when they became law and order Democrats. You know what I mean? Like you look at Bill Clinton, he came in, he won on getting tough on crime. I mean, Biden, like those Democrats are like, yeah, we're not, we're tough on crime too, we can win, and that's the reason why they came in. So you have all of these rights, that are being voted away. The crack epidemic came in, tough on drugs or whatever. I mean, again, voting away more rights, voting away more protections or whatever. 9/11 came in the town, like, oh, these brown towelhead motherfuckers, we got to give, take away, take away more rights. So then this pandemic comes down, and you see all of this shit, and people are like, so why don't we have universal health care? Like, why is it that, like, why are our wages? Why can't we? Wait a second, we're the richest country on the planet. Why are we getting more money to float by? Like, what's going on? And it's because of these 40 years of you don't have social services because you voted them bitches away because you thought it was only for the welfare on.
Right.
Like the police are out here like tear gassing white people just like they're tear gassing black people. Because like for years we treated cops like they were above the law because they were protecting white people from the terrible black people. So we treated them like gods. Like we let go, like voting. Like what the fuck is voting? Like when what was it? Was it Wisconsin that like threw out the ballots because they were mailed in late and the Supreme Court upheld that shit? Like it was what do you expect whenever you put in a fucking megalomaniac that like lost the popular vote and is now putting in a judicial system that's going to keep it, right wing and very centralized power for the next 40 years. So like, I think that the pandemic sort of to like, everybody was out protesting. The people who were like, don't protest, they were out protesting in masks and shit. You know what I mean? Like, in these funny ass, like, founders masks and all these, weird shit.
Right.
And you start to see America as a whole start to be like, maybe this isn't all on the up and up. Maybe the government doesn't have our best interest. Maybe these corporations don't have. Why is it that all these rich folks are getting these stipends and everything, all these PPP loans and, like all of the things that were supposed to be meant for us? Why is it that we're not experiencing this pandemic, equally? You know what I mean? And this was white folks.
Right.
Black folks have never, like, black folks have been experiencing the pandemic of white people for fucking our entire, existence here in America. But like for the first time in a long time, white people were like, I don't get it. I don't understand why the system isn't working for me. And that's because the system was never meant to work for poor white people. It was meant to work for rich people. And if you happen to be white, you got a little bit more of a leg up. But ultimately, we're all shadowed. And then when you see something like a George Floyd happen, that is unequivocally, you don't have the I need to see more video. Like you don't, like that's for the first, and talking to a lot of white folks, a lot, like they were saying, in their circles, it was the first time that people didn't have any of the other excuses that they typically had. Like, oh, maybe if they just just did obey orders, or maybe he was acting inappropriately beforehand, or any of the other excuses. It was 9 minutes of a man on the ground being slowly choked to death. There's nothing more that you need. There was no point in that 9 minutes where he was a threat to anyone in any way, shape, or form. He was pleading for his life. People were pleading for his life, and it was ruthless, and there was just no excuse whatsoever.
Right.
And the only thing that people could really say at that point was, "Oh, I don't appreciate the way that you're protesting." But nobody could really say that death was lawful or any of that. So I think that whole again, it was, and then these protests that happened afterwards. Well, of course you can have these sustained protests because everybody's out of work, everybody's out of a job. You know what I mean? Like it's easy, like it's hard to protest and demand change when you got to be to work at 9.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, but when you're sitting at home, not knowing when your next paycheck is going to come, not knowing if your business is going to open back up. It's you're a little angry and you're like, okay, well maybe it's fucked up for everybody. You know what I mean? And it's a little easier to demand some change. So I think that's really what it really what it was. It was a perfect storm of shit.
So as a black man, someone who's lived, I mean, like I said, this isn't new for you. You've lived this your entire life. Does it make you, though, if you think, though, like, it's sad that it took something this, and I understand you're completely right, but it's sad that it took something this obvious that, that sort of turn people's eyes to say, oh, hey, there's something not right here. But meanwhile, if at any point in the last, just let's say in the last 20 years, with all of these cases, that somebody would have, that people would have reacted then, we probably could have avoided Antoine Rose. We probably could have avoided Eric Garner. And
Yeah,
it's maddening,
yeah,
though.
but I mean, but the system is the system because the system
Yeah.
works. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, and that's the thing. Like, you can't, so like, if you're going to enact change, if you're going to enact change in society, you can't really be mad. Like, it's hard. It's a juggling act, right? Because you can't be mad at some folks. I mean, willful ignorance really is a thing. But I mean, ultimately, a lot of these folks are victims of a system, and they are victims, right? Like, while they are experiencing a little, maybe a little bit of a better life than I'm living, they're still poor. They're still not like the main reason for bankruptcy in America is healthcare. You know what I mean? Like, healthcare costs. There's a lot of poor white people out there who, like Lupe Fiasco, one of my favorite rappers. He has a line that says, he wants to burn a cross, but he can't afford the gasoline. You know what I mean? And it encapsulates that racist, Klan member who's extremely upset at black people, but is also living in poverty. You know what I mean? He wants to, enact all of this anger and hatred upon the black community, but he can't even afford gasoline to burn the cross on their lawn. So his anger is very misdirected.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's misdirected because he's been told a lie his entire life. From the time that he came into his hillbilly existence, he's been told that these Negroes over here in the city, in these urban areas over in Chicago, are out here, just living a jungle life, living it cool off of welfare, out here, raping his women, in his, hillbilly, towns or whatever. And, he needs to vote for this Republican who is going to lower his taxes and be hard on those jungle Negroes, right? He doesn't know any better. You know what I mean? Like, and they're in a bubble, and they keep them in the bubbles. They keep them in bubbles by, they're lowering taxes, but they're also taking away all of the social services and all of the things that person needs in order to get a leg up. Their education system is shit. When that company leaves that town, they all go into poverty. That whole town goes into poverty, and they don't have any protections because they gave all of all the money to the corporations, and they voted away all their rights, for the government, the Republicans, the whole nine. And who are they told is their enemy? Black people. So, and it's the same thing with black folks, man. I mean, we live in bubbles. We live in a society that, like, we don't always know. Like, we and ways of acting and thinking, like, oftentimes society tells us that the only way to get out of poverty is to dribble a ball, or to rap a lyric. So, like, it takes somebody to come into these areas, into these places, and these communities, and listen and offer, like, an alternative. And it is frustrating. It's frustrating work. It's hard work. It's not rewarding a lot of times. We are living off of the hard work of our ancestors that never got to see freedom, right? Like, those people that fought for freedom, a lot of those people died before seeing it, and we got to see it because they believed in it and they fought knowing they may never see it. So it's the same thing with us, is that we have to go into these communities, and yeah, we could be angry at the fact that you weren't born woke, that, somehow I became a little bit more aware before you became aware, because,
Right.
That's really what it is. And I like 10 years from now, I'm probably going to be looking at, the things that I'm saying and doing right now kind of in disgust, because, like, I wasn't born woke, and there's still a lot of things that I don't know. And hopefully 20 years from now, I'll still be learning, some things. So I can't fault the people who aren't on, at the same place that I'm at. I just have to work with the people whenever they do come to a place where they are willing to change, and whatever that is that gets them to that place that they're willing to change, fine, let's go from there.
Yeah. And obviously programming like Fresh Fest is something that, again, it sort of brings folks together and over a commonality, which is beer, and hopefully begin to understand each other a little better. Anyway, at least where folks are coming from, if not, ready to start, inviting folks into dinner. So, but Dave Bracey, you could go to freshfestdigifest.com and $10 tickets. He's got, you said 54 hours of programming ready for folks this weekend, or August 8th. So Dave Bracey, thank you so much for joining me, and everybody check out Fresh Fest this week.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it, sir.
Absolutely.
Giving Pittsburgh a better alternative. Giving Pittsburgh a better alternative. Yeah.